It is quite striking, and it's crisis mode right now. We're seeing unemployment claims at levels that haven't been seen since the Great Depression. And right now it's about 14%, but it's expected to get even higher into the 20s. So what we're going through is catastrophic, and people are searching for answers and some kind of relief. And certainly it's not reassuring when we hear whistleblowers like that official who you mentioned, who is telling us that not only has President Trump been falsely promoting this drug that he says raises serious safety concerns, but also that he was among the many officials who tried to raise the alarm back in January after Chinese officials told the U.S. about the virus, that simply there was not uh, a coherent and sufficiently satisfactory response at the federal level, and now we're seeing the consequence.
What about politically, Aaron? We're ticking away. We're just a few weeks away from June. The election's November. What's the temperature there?
Well, it's difficult because people are literally confined to their homes.
Looks like we've
So
got a bit of a technical glitch there.
not everyone's not everyone's thinking about politics right now too, because people are just trying to survive. But look, you have this awkward situation where you have Joe Biden confined to his basement and trying to rally support and drum up a campaign of opposition against Trump literally from his basement. So it's difficult. It's unlike any other presidential contest that we've ever seen in an already very bizarre U.S. political scene. So it's hard to say. I mean, look, personally, I think that Trump's response should hurt him politically in the polls. But one thing we've learned, I mean, 2016 taught us that a reality game show host can win the presidency of the most powerful country in the world. So really, anything can happen.
What about the actual virus right at the moment? COVID-19 in the United States, New York, of course, have extended lockdown laws. Where do you think the battle is at?
Well, you've seen the battle in very stark terms where you have, for example, armed protesters going to the state capitol in Michigan. And, you can make an argument that states are different. Obviously, here in New York, we're the epicenter, way more deaths and cases than everybody else. So you can make an argument that, New York should be at a different level and being held to different safeguards than other states. But at the same time, you also don't want to rush things and put people into unnecessary risk. And that is the delicate balance that people are facing right now. And I think everyone's in a very tough position. It's hard to know clearly what the answers are because you want to protect people, but you also have to take into account that this shutdown is causing serious damage to people's lives in other ways.
And the health system is right under the spotlight, of course it is. The morbidity, the rates amongst blacks and Hispanics, particularly where you live, is extraordinary.
Sure, and that speaks to the racial injustice that is embedded in all facets of society, and people of color bear the brunt of systemic inequalities. And a big difference between the U.S. and virtually every other industrialized country is that we don't provide guaranteed health care to everybody. And I think now the reason why you have such a higher per capita death rate in the U.S. than in other places speaks to the fact that we don't have a universal healthcare system because people are just not able to get the care that they need, and already are coming into this crisis with being in probably poorer health than they would been otherwise if they lived in a country that took care of everyone's basic health needs. So, I mean, if there's one silver lining from all this is that this will lead, this massive country, this very important country, to rethink the ways in which it approaches society and approaches the provision of basic things like healthcare.
What do you make of the president's claims of an Obama Gate conspiracy?
Well, I've been a skeptic of Russiagate from the start. I thought it was not based in any real evidence. And I do think actually there was some political targeting of people like Michael Flynn, Trump's national security advisor. And certainly the results of Russiagate bear out the fact that this allegation of a Trump-Russia conspiracy was baseless. And this obsession with, Russian email hacking and Russian social media posts is, no matter what the truth of it is, it's way out of proportion to, I think, the severity of the problem, and meanwhile has ignored very serious problems in this country, as we're now seeing now with the pandemic. So, I do think actually that Trump is right to accuse his opponents of some malfeasance. I don't know if President Obama himself was involved. I have my doubts, but certainly there were a number of high level intelligence officials in collusion with the Democrats who lost to Trump in 2016, who tried to make Russiagate a big thing, something way bigger than it actually was, and tried to use it to bring Trump down. And, one of the reasons I was so against it is as a partisan, I personally don't want Trump to win in 2020. And I always thought that it was a huge gift to his opponents to divert attention away from his actual policies into this conspiracy theory that he conspired with Russia. And not only was it a gift then, but then it was another gift when it collapsed. And now that we're finding out that intelligence officials abused the system to begin the investigation and to continue it, I think that will help Trump in his 2020 reelection campaign.
Finally, I've been asking everyone who's living in New York on a weekly basis, what's life like for you? And Aaron, tell me, give me some reflection. We've had the lockdown extended now deep into June.
Well, I lost somebody close to me, a mentor of mine who was a wonderful person and in pretty good health. So, many people have this experience now where if you're in New York, you probably know someone who's died. And fortunately, I've known many people who have gotten it but have beaten it. But it's taken a real toll. And now you go outside and everybody has a mask. The only real reason to go outside now for me is to go grocery shopping. I'm fortunate in that respect, in that I don't have to go. I'm not an essential worker, so I'm not putting my life on the line every day like so many brave people are. But it is a scary time. And for me, in a city where there's so much inequality and where people who lack resources are just that much more vulnerable to things like a pandemic, it's made me think about what I can do when this whole thing is over to try to help reorganize society in a way that takes care of everybody a lot more.
Hopefully some positives will come out of it the other side. Aaron, good to talk to you. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks for having me.